Now let us consider the procedural limitations for the enactment of laws. You find it primarily in Section 26. It says that no bill shall be passed by either house unless it has passed 3 readings on separate days and printed copies thereof in its final form have been distributed to its members 3 days before its passage, except when the President certifies to the necessity of its immediate enactment to meet the public calamity or emergency. So it's presented to the President. If he approves or signs it, or he shall veto it and send it back with his veto message to the house of origin of the bill. So in short, there are 2 steps in the lawmaking process. First is the approval of both houses, who must undergo 3 readings of the proposal. Then it is approved by the President, who may approve it or veto it or not act on it within 30 days, and that it becomes law. It lapses into law. Okay. So how does a bill become a law? The process is simple. Foremost, there is a bill introduced in Congress by any of the members of the House, no? In either the Senate or House of Representatives, no? So the bill could originate in the Senate or the House of Representatives. However, there are bills that must originate essentially from the House of Representatives. And according to the Constitution, this includes appropriations, revenue bills, bills increasing public debt, bills of local application, and private bills. They refer to the exclusively to the House of Representatives to be initiated. No? So what's the process? A bill is proposed either in the Senate or House of Reps, as the case may be. Then it undergoes the first reading. In the first reading, the title of the bill is number. The House bill number is read in its in the plenary by the Senate President or and referred by the Senate President or the Speaker of the House eventually to the proper committee. So in the first reading, babasahin yung bill number, House bill number, and then yung title ng bill, the short title, no? Or the long title, so that they will know that there's a proposal. Okay, the plenary will know that there's a proposal. The bill is submitted to the proper committee. No? In the proper committee, the bill may be killed, no? May be rejected, or it may be recommended for approval. If there are bills that are of similar characteristics or subjects, then they may be consolidated into one bill. That's why you have a bill that is co-sponsored by so many members of Congress. Then it is submitted for the second reading. In the second reading, the bill is read in its entirety and deliberations happen. No? So when it is approved, it is distributed 3 days before the next reading to the members of the respective house. Okay. The third reading, on the third reading, no longer shall there be any deliberation. What will happen is they will just simply vote, and they may explain their votes if they desire to. Okay. Under our Constitution, majority vote is required to approve bills, no, in the third reading. Okay, majority vote. But there is such a thing you call a shifting majority. The shifting majority may vary depending on the number of persons constituting the quorum. So, since the majority is required to constitute a quorum, the majority of the existing majority will be sufficient to enact a law, no? Or to approve a bill. Sorry, to approve a bill. So the majority shifts depending on how many are in attendance, constituting the quorum. So now on the third reading, these are in 3 separate days. But there is a provision also in the Constitution that if the President certifies the bill to be urgent, it can be expedited. No, what it means here is that the 3 readings cannot be done away with, but they can be done all in the same day. This is very dangerous because if the bill is approved on the same day as of the second reading, it is printed in its final form because it's going to be the version submitted to the Speaker of the House or the Senate Presidents. And eventually, that version, kung makapasa sa kabilang house, will be the version in the enrolled bill. No? But the final reading of the bill is subject to or will require a printed final form, no? Para walang riders, so dangerous siya. So if the bill is certified as urgent by the President, I think the Maharlika bill, he certified it as urgent for one way or one reason or another. The three readings must still be conducted, but it may be expedited, no, to happen on a compressed number of days or compressed in one day. Okay? So it's after the third reading, the bill is submitted to the other house so that it can undergo three readings again on the other house. So kung nag-originate sa Senate, it goes to the House of Representatives for three readings. If it originated from the House of Reps, it goes to the Senate again for the third reading or the three readings. Okay? After the three readings from both houses, submitted to the Senate President and the Speaker of the House, they sign it, and that's the enrolled bill. Okay? That's the enrolled bill. So dalawang beses babasahin yung or i-read yung magkakaroon ng three readings. Once in the court or in the Congress of or the House of Origin, and the second in the other house. They conduct their own readings, three readings each. So the legislative endeavor is too complicated, no? And when they are done voting on the bill, no, the house where the bill is sent to, the bill is certified in its final form if approved by Congress. But this bill, by the way, when it goes to the other house, it's given to the other to their appropriate committee, because it could also, like in the House of Origin, consolidate their version if there is an existing version of that same bill in that said house. Okay. So that version, the enrolled bill, is the one that is submitted to the President for his veto or approval. So it's submitted to the President. The President may approve the law, and it becomes effective after publication. Or the President may simply ignore the law, and then because he ignored it and 30 days have lapsed, it lapses into law kahit na he did not sign it. And there are several laws that have lapsed, or bills have lapsed into law, and these are some of the examples. No? The President did not act on it, automatically it becomes law. Or the President may veto the bill. Should the President veto the bill, he may send the veto message together with the vetoed bill to the House of Origin. Okay, balik niya. Pero the House of Origin may override the veto, no? Override the veto by a 2/3 vote of the members of that house. If approved by the 2/3 vote, it goes to the other house also, which shall also require 2/3 vote to repass the bill at their level. So, in the case of, if you notice, this confirms the finding in the case of Abacada versus Purisima that lawmaking process, indeed, under the Constitution, is a joint act of Congress and the President. No? In case of conflict between a statute and treaty, which prevails? It's always the statute, because a treaty may be concurred by the Senate, is primarily entered into by the President. But a statute is participative. It's more complicated and more deliberative. No, it's a deliberate endeavor for the creation of law. So between a statute and a treaty, law takes primacy. Another power related to the main power of the Congress is question hour, but this is not primary legislative. It's a oversight power, where in the question hour, upon their own initiative or with the consent of the President, or upon the request of either house, the heads of offices or the departments may appear and be heard by the house on a matter pertaining to their department. Sumbong sila or tatanungin sila. So these questions are put into writing, but it's not limited there. No, they are put to writing and they are submitted to the Speaker or the House of Reps, or the Senate President or the Speaker of the House of Reps. Interpellations may cover matters not related to the written questions. However, in question hour, when the security of the state is at stake or public interest so requires, and it's the president states so in writing, they may have what you call an executive session, a closed door deliberation, especially if the matter is one involving national security. Then we have legislative investigations. You call this inquiries in aid of legislation in accordance with the duly published rules of procedure, because the power to inquire is inherent in the power to legislate. So what is being done here is that Congress calls on people to testify so that Congress can know already what law shall be, bill shall be proposed. So in the case of Garciliano versus House of Reps, the Senate cannot be allowed to continue with the conduct of the questioned legislative inquiry without the duly prohibited rules on procedure. So remember this case speaks of the necessity of procedure or of notice, even for inquiries in aid of legislation. So how do you distinguish legislative investigation from question hour? Actually, I made a table out of this, and this is it. No, question hour, only a department head may be compelled to attend. In legislative investigation, it could be any person who conducts the investigation. It is the entire body. But in the legislative investigation, it may be done by any of their committees or the plenary. Subject matter is any matter related to the department only for question hour, but you can ask anything, or you can be asked anything for legislative investigation. So on the purpose, question hour is oversight, but for legislative investigation, it's for rulemaking, lawmaking. The president, the members of Congress are also the board of canvassers for presidential elections. Okay, that's section 4. And they may call for a special election for the president and the vice president. Everything should be completed within 100 days. So, from the time, 3 days from the time the president is, the office is vacated, within 3 days, Congress convenes. And 10 days from the date of the incident, no, Congress may pass a special law. 55th to the 70th day of the vacancy, election is held, and up to the 100th day, there shall be canvassing. So within 100 days from the vacancy of the office of the president and the vice president, there must be a conducted already special election. So for special elections, no, of the president and the vice president, the following are its characteristics. It's certified as urgent, and then there is no approval of the president because there is no president. There is availability of the funds. The funds for a special election can be taken from existing funds in the general appropriations, and there shall be no suspension or postponement of the election. Let's continue with this on the next video.